Race fans, it's time to buckle in and listen to the fastest hour in racing radio. Your driver is a multi-time NASCAR winner and Hall of Famer Mark Martin. We cover racing, grassroots, history, we bench race, we talk life, and most importantly, we smash the loud pedal. It's time to turn some laps on the Mark Martin Podcast.
Episode number 46 of the Mark Martin Podcast, and we're going to go into the years 2010 and 2011. But before we do that, make sure to hit the website, markmartinpod.com, markmartinpod.com. Get all the old episodes. Make sure to hit that connect button and hit us up on social media at markmartinpod on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Make sure to go and subscribe on your favorite podcast player, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Make sure to hit up that YouTube, hit that subscribe button, help us get our numbers up. But Mark, we're going to go into the years 2010 and 2011. Rolling at Hendrick Motorsports. Tell us about those years on the Mark Martin Podcast.
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, Barry, is really to talk about how the scene gets set for 2010 after an amazing 2009. And, you know, just the incredible honor it was to drive for Rick Hendrick and work with all the incredible employees at Hendrick Motorsports and have teammates, Jimmy Johnson and Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt Jr. For teammates. And, you know, the debriefs at the racetrack when we would all get together, and then the competition meetings on every Tuesday, were just incredible. Chad Canals, Steve Letarte, Alan. These guys were just incredible guys to work with. So we had a fantastic season in 2009, and Junior had a very dismal season in 2009. And so the heads at Hendrick Motorsports, I'm sure, got together with Rick on how can we got to do something to get Junior going better. And our deal was perfect, but they decided to take Chris Seroy, who was our lead engineer, and make him the lead engineer over there at Junior's car. And, when you really think about it, that shouldn't have made a dramatic difference. The only thing was, it was a little disheartening to have anything in your team adjusted after you'd damn near won the championship, 7 poles and 5 races and everything else. But that was pretty disappointing. I get it. I understand why they did it. And I understand the logic behind it, that you wouldn't think it would make that much difference in the performance of the 5 car. However, we'll get into this season, and I'll let people judge for themselves. I still look back on it and think that Alan was so incredible, and we had good engineering to step up in the place, and I didn't really ever see any real reason that we should have lost the magic that we had. So with that behind us, we'll just start by going to Daytona. And as you recall, in Alan's car, the first year, 2009 at Daytona, they put me on the outside pole. And so in 2010, they did one better and got us the pole for the Daytona 500, which was pretty darn incredible. It was a really, really special experience, something that I had been envious of a lot of different people who had fast enough cars to do that when I never even had a shot before I got the 5 car. So that was really cool to do, and we protected that car all throughout speed weeks, and we wound up in the race. We wound up running okay. I just didn't feel like we got the car to handle quite as good as I did the 01 car in 2007. In 2007, I had the handling. I had the kind of car that you could win the race with, and damn near did. Just never quite comfortable in traffic enough to be able to really muscle what I needed to do. And so we wound up 12th, which was good. I mean, that was okay. Nothing wrong with that. Finished 12th in the 500, and then we go to Fontana and run 4th, and then we go to Vegas the next week and run 4th. So we're looking really good. I mean, we're off to a good start. Doesn't look like we've missed a beat. Qualifying in the top 10 every week. And then we go to Atlanta and qualify 4th, and we get in a crash though at Atlanta, which, that kind of stuff happens. And then we go to Bristol and we qualify 13th, which is not that bad. But something happens. I don't remember what, but we wound up in 35th place. So we had some kind of issue. And then, we go on to Phoenix, and something's starting to kind of show a little bit of an ugly head, because we qualified 23rd at Phoenix when we had been sitting on the pole out there. But we did run 4th in the race, so that was pretty damn outstanding. And then we go to Texas and we run 6th, but we qualify 30th. And that's starting to show this kind of trend that we've lost some speed from where we were the year before. And so we keep soldiering on. And as we soldier through the season, we crank out a lot of finishes in the teens and a lot of qualifying efforts in the teens. And that's starting to be kind of a trend. So we're beginning to lose our speed. We start off the season on the high note, just where we left off in 09, but as we start getting into the grind of the mid-season, we're starting to lose our edge and lose our speed. And it's really, it's real competitive, and it's just really hard to put your finger on why that happened, but it did. We start running in the teens, and even go to my best racetrack, which is Dover, the second Dover race, and we ran 12th at Dover, for crying out loud. That's terrible. And the first Dover race, we ran 15th. So, this is my best place. This is where I can put a top 10 in when I don't have a top 10 car. So it's really showing some problems. Somehow or another, the 30th race of the season, we pull out a 6th place at Fontana, but I'm not sure how we did that. I don't remember the details about that, but I do remember that we did miss the chase, and based on all the poor, the teens, finishing in the teens, and not enough top 5s to overcome that. So we get out of Fontana and we go to Charlotte and we run 14th. That's kind of a disappointment. And then we go to Martinsville. We qualify 21st, and we get in an accident in that race, and it mashes. I think it mashes up the back of the car some, and they wind up pulling the rear bumper cover off the car. and there's a long green flag run at the end of that. And I got a lap down, but we got the lap back, and we restarted in the back of the lead lap with a long run. I'm going to just say, I'm just guessing. I'm going to say with a 100-lap run, 100 laps to go. And it runs green that entire time. And I drive from the back of the pack all the way to second. And I'm beating Denny 3/10 a lap. Every lap, 3/10 on a 21-second racetrack. I mean, I'm passing cars like they got flat tires. It's unbelievable. Toward the end of the race, the right rear tire was just like new, and everybody else's was like cords. I mean, I was just killing them. And just a couple more laps, and I would have caught Denny. I actually did basically nearly catch Denny, and then the race was over. But if I'd have had 2 or 3 more laps, we could have caught him and passed him. We were murdering the field at this point. And I'm not sure if not having the bumper cover on there did that, or if it maybe pushed the deck lid up a little bit and we had a little bit more rear downforce, or what the deal was. But whatever it was, our right rear tire didn't wear out. And of course, everybody's does, and it just destroys you at Martinsville. You lose all that forward drive off the corner. And we just about won that race, and that was something that we really needed. And it didn't work out. And then we go a couple weeks later. We go to Texas, and we run third at Texas, and then 8th at Phoenix the next week. So, we're off, but we're probably not where we need to be. And it's a pretty big disappointment. And at this point in time, I'm totally left out of this conversation, just like I was with our lead engineer, Chris. But over the winter, they have a conversation about what can we do, to make our program better, the brain-powered Hendrick Motorsports. And they decide that putting Lance McGrew as my crew chief and taking Alan and putting him with Jeff Gordon, because Jeff, Jimmy was just outperforming Jeff. And to be real honest with you, that didn't seem right. I mean, it seemed like Jeff should be performing on the same level as Jimmy Johnson for sure. I mean, logic would say that. And there again, I see the logic in it. The logic is, let's make Jeff Gordon better. Mark's whatever, old. And, at this point in time, it would have been pretty cool if I'd have just quit and hung up my helmet at the end of 2009 after running second in the points. But for sure, if I was looking back, I would have, when they made that crew chief change on my team, it probably would have been the best thing for me to hang up the helmet and let Casey Kane have the car, or let that Casey have the car and let me go over there and run the Red Bull thing. There was a long thing that went on through this season, all the way back up at Indianapolis in the middle of the year. There was talk about, Casey Kane driving the 5 car. And, I had already told Rick that I wouldn't re-sign after 2011. I told him that in early 2010, and I said, I will not drive past 2011. And he's like, we want you to stay. We want you to drive as long as you'll drive. We want you, And I'm like, dude, you need to get Casey Kane. Casey Kane. You need to get Casey Kane. And he said, well, we want you to drive as long as you'll drive. And I said, well, look, I'll drive through 2011, but you need to get a contract right now with Casey and do something with him in 2011 so he can take the car over in 2012. And so that's what Rick did. But there were some rumblings that, Casey was going to get the 5 car. And what Rick did is did a deal with Jay Fry and Red Bull Racing and put Casey over there. And to be honest with you, that would have reunited me with Jay, who was in charge of the 2007 season, and we were great buddies. And I should have gone there if I wanted to finish out my year. I should have just did that and let Casey go ahead and have the 5 car. I didn't know that. I didn't know Rick wanted that. I knew Rick kept telling me that he wanted me to drive the 5 car. And so that's what we did. And and that brings us into 2011, which basically a nightmare. Just a really tough year. We just didn't perform. We couldn't get the car going. Lance and I, we worked hard and we got along, but we just couldn't find the magic. The performance in 2010 wasn't that far off. It's pretty damn good. But if you look at it, only got 1 pole, and that was Daytona. And when you look at that tells a story. Because my qualifying always shows the kind of cars that I have. We go into 2011, hell, I get 2 poles in 2011. But one of those is at Daytona in July, and the other one is at Talladega. So those aren't real poles. Those are car poles, not... Those are, they're restrictor plate poles. They don't count for nothing. That's all team. That's a different kind of car than everything else. So I don't get a pole at the regular races. I think probably my best qualifying all year was I did qualify 3rd, 4th, 5th, few of those. But for the most part, in the teens and 20s. And for the most part, our finishes are teens and 20s. I mean, it's a tough, dismal season where we just can't find, we've lost even more speed from 2010. 2010 was an acceptable season, even though it was a disappointment we didn't win. 2011 just outright sucked. And Lance and I got along. We worked hard. We tried hard. We studied. We did everything that we could do, but everybody did everything they could, but it just was major subpar. What it looked like? It looked like Dale Jr.'s kind of, it looked a lot like Dale Jr.'s performance had looked before, making the change and putting Chris, our engineer, over there with Junior. And actually that didn't help Junior that much either. So the thing that seemed to help Junior was putting Letarte over there. When they gave Steve Letarte to Dale Jr., that seemed to be a good fit, and that seemed to work better, and they started picking up their performance. Of course, I just went down the tubes. So that kind of brings us up. The majority of my memories are, it just pretty sad year 2011 was to be driving for Rick Hendrick and finishing, in the teens and 20s, racing your ass off. I mean, like you wouldn't believe, for what I consider mid-pack finishes. So just a tough time. In hindsight, I certainly would have handled things differently. But when you're going through those things and Rick Hendricks telling you, I want you to drive, I just wish now that I'd have gone ahead and said, hey, look, go ahead and put Casey in the car and I'll go drive over there for Jay Fry at the Red Bull deal. Hell, Casey won a race in the car, and ran pretty good over there. So I probably would have had a better performance in 2011 if I would have done something different. This just did not work for us.
How did it end with Hendrick? I mean, your contract's up. Wasn't bitter by any means. Just kind of just ended on just petered out.
It just petered out. I mean, Rick and I are still really good friends. Why do I say that? Rick and I are still very good friends when we see each other. We're not the kind of friends that call each other. I congratulate him when they win sometimes or whatever. And when I see him, we're very friendly. He always treats me with the utmost respect, always has, and regularly tells me that I helped his operation more than I'll ever know. And I believe I did help his operation a lot in 2009. It's just we weren't able to end on a high note. The enthusiasm that was brought to the surface at Hendrick Motorsports in 2009 when I signed on and started working with those guys and started hauling ass was second to none, and it was very, very good for that organization. They were also in a contract year on their sponsorship in 2009, at the end of 2009, and they had not been winning any races with the 5-car and were kind of in dire straits with that, and Rick knew that too, and he made a move to put me in that car to try to get some results so that they would be able to sign some sponsors up, and it worked. We put together an incredible 2009 season. They signed sponsorship, long-term sponsorship for 2010 and 2011. So it all worked out. And Rick is very, he's a very first-class, classy guy. And so are all the people that work there. So I have nothing but love for him and all the people in that organization and for the opportunity that I had to be a part of that team.
So, Mark, you go from, on top of the world. Like we said, it kind of peters out in 2010 and 2011. And then we're going to, in the next podcast, let's give kind of a preview of the next podcast. And this is the last one that we're going to do in the chronological order, in the year order. So, and basically wrapping up your career in 2012 and 13, Michael Waltrip's deal, and then some various other rides that you had in 13. This is the end. I mean, this is the end of of your career. It's the end of the chronological podcast. Let's give kind of a preview of it's not the last podcast, but the last podcast of this year and career perspective.
So in the fall, not really even the fall. Yeah, it is the fall. It's somewhere around early fall. I get a text from Michael Waltrip. And first of all, to put it in context, nobody listening to this will know what I mean when I talk about wood grain steering wheels. But that's from a rapper standpoint. There's a lot of rap songs that talk about, their badass rides having a wood grain steering wheel, and gripping the grain and whatnot. And I was on that quite a bit. So it meant something to me at the time. So Michael texts me and all it says, "What you doing?" And I text back and I said, "Looking for something to drive with a wood grain steering wheel." And so it's like, won't you come drive for me? And I had never thought about it, but their organization, had really gained a lot of speed and was really, doing well, had the Toyota backing, and he had the Aaron sponsorship and all that stuff. And he had multiple cars and had Martin Truex driving for him. And it was just, it was something to consider. So I did. And so that kind of sets the stage for making the move to the Michael Waltrip Racing thing. I certainly was never going to run full time again. But if I could recreate what I had in 07 and 08, which was a 24 race schedule, in a good car and have some more fun, I was ready for that more than I was ready to just walk away from driving race cars altogether. And if you're going to drive a race car, for me, the place to do it was in Cup racing. It wasn't Xfinity racing. It wasn't truck racing. It was on the top level. If you could do it on a limited basis and drive cars that would haul, but Cup racing was what it needed to be. So that's what made everything, all the numbers work and everything work and make it worthwhile. So in the next podcast, we'll go into 2012 and 13 and the things that happened with that.
So we're going to do that in the next podcast here on the Mark Martin Podcast. We're going to wrap up the career of Mark Martin in NASCAR with 2012 and 2013. But this does it for 2010 and 11 here on the Mark Martin Podcast.
Thank you for subscribing and listening to the Mark Martin Podcast. Remember to give us a 5-star rating in your app store. Connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Mark Martin POD. The Mark Martin Podcast is a production of the Accelerated Podcast Network.